Days like this, when it's cold, when it's snowy, there's one thing that we like to do at Table at Games. Think about basing, thinking about summer basing. Instead of an Arctic tundra hellscape, I'm thinking beautiful, manicured green grasses as far as the eye can see that our 100 kingdoms can march across into battle. Why don't you follow us as we use a static grass applicator to make some really cool, really summery grass bases. Hi, I'm Brannen with Table Gaming. Today we're going to be doing some basing on these Parabellum Conquest 100 Kingdom models. As you've probably seen on Twitch, we've been painting these guys the last few weeks, and now it's time to finish them off. What we want to do today is make them look like they're walking through a lush grassland. To do this, we're going to be doing a few different things. One is we're going to cover the base with some mud texture paste. This will allow a nice foundation where we can build up our static grass. The next thing we're going to be doing is using some different length static grass and a static grass applicator to try to build up a nice green lush bed, which our soldiers will then be able to walk through as they make their way into the battle. Let's get into it. The first thing we have to do is build up that nice foundation of textured mud paste. To do that, we're going to be using AK Interactive's Muddy Ground diorama paste. When you open it up, you'll notice it's got the nice brown textured paste, which we want. It looks like soil, looks like something that grass would love growing on. Here we have a Parabellum Conquest Regiment stand. I have glued in these little stripe plates so that in the future with my magnetized models, they'll rank up nicely. But this provides a nice example without any models in the way to show how we apply this textured paste. I like using the GW spreader tool. It does a nice job of scooping and laying out the textured paste in a way that I find controllable. It is important to note that as you do this, you don't want to be too thick. The goal is to create a nice foundation that we'll be building up with static grass, not to have this be the entire point of the basing. To feather it out, you can also use a brush. It's just make sure you don't use a brush you care about, because that brush will not be lasting too long. I also have water here to clean off the brush and the tool as I go along. Depending how long it takes, it sometimes does get gummed up as it dries on the tools. So just rinse it out, wipe it off, and you're good to continue. The other important part that most basing won't have to contend with is we need to make sure to keep these open areas free of debris so that the models will slot in and out nicely. If you mess up, it's okay, because later on you can go through with an X-Acto knife or something like that and scrape it out to make sure your model can fit snug. We see there's a bunch of texture here, so we're just gonna feather this out, smooth it out, and then we'll be done. This does take a little bit of time to dry, depending how thick you apply it. So I like doing a few of these at the same time, so that when you finish with the last one and you come back to the first one, it is usually ready to go. That's what it should look like when you're all set. The next step is we're going to be filling the hopper of our static grass applicator. This can be very messy because static grass loves to get everywhere. So one thing that I recommend doing is getting a container that you can pour things in, that if it spills, it'll still maintain the mess to this area. I got a cheap small pan sheet from Target that is metal because the static grass applicator uses electricity, static electricity, to make the grass stand up. So my thought is this would be conductive to support that, and with this nice tall rim, it would contain the mess. Today, we're going to be using the Geek Gaming Scenic Summer Static Grass. I've gone ahead and mixed the 2, 4, and 6 millimeter in here in this cup. The reason I did that is some of it was getting clumped, and before you load it up, you want to break it up so it is nice and fine. Now that that is done, we're going to take our static grass applicator. So next thing we're going to do is use our small screwdriver. Open up the hopper like this. So the screw to the side. We're going to take the top off. This static grass applicator does have multiple different types of heads. I use the one that is a mix of small and large holes so that it can go with all the different types of grass I put in. So we're going to take our cup with the broken up static grass, and we're just going to shake it in and fill it up. Already you can see it's kind of going everywhere. We'll put that to the side, put the top back on, slot it in, and I'm going to screw the screw back on. I don't know if you really need the screw, but it came with it, so I figured why not. I do think that this design could probably be improved if they replace this instead of a flathead with just a thumb screw, so you could just take it on and off a little bit easier. So now that it's all loaded up, the next thing we have to do is set up the static grass applicator by plugging it in. This uses a standard AC socket. It also takes 9-volt batteries, but I figure you get a little bit more power plugging it in. And then the other wire we have to connect is what generates the static, which just goes right here. And then what you do is you put the little clip, and this one comes with this little footrest which I clip this onto, and it generates the static electricity to make sure the static grass is standing upright. So now we got this all set up, we just have to put the glue on the base. So I'm going to move this off the area. So what we're going to do here is use basing glue. I'm using the Geek Gaming Scenic Fast Drying Basing Glue. You can use any PVA glue you want. You might need to water it down a little bit depending how thick it is. The way I'm going to be applying this today is a lot like we apply paint. I'm going to take some of it, I'm going to put it on a piece of this palette paper. I'm going to take a brush I don't super care about. I'm going to load it up, and then I'm just going to go to town and just get this nice and gluey. You do want to get a fair amount of glue on this to keep everything sticking right. As always, we can clean this up afterwards. If you get glue where you don't want it, it's fairly easy to scrape it off once it dries. And as you see, I'm applying this right over the texture base that we built up earlier. I find that it just offers a little bit more variety, and then the static grass is pretty full depending how you do it, but you can still sometimes see below the dirt, and I think this makes a much more realistic cover. The important part about this is if you ever have an opportunity to do an Iron Warriors army, you never ever want to go with the grass theme, that's something that really tilts Perturabo. He hates touching the grass, even if Abaddon wants him to, without a model on it, but you can work around it. Just like painting in nooks and crannies, it just takes a little bit more effort and being a little bit more careful. Make sure everything's nice and covered because it needs a nice layer of glue to get some grass. This is looking real nice. So now is on to the next step. Yet once again, we put it within our little baking sheet to keep the mess to a minimum. We're gonna set up our little probe right there. Flip this around. As you can see, it already comes out even without the static or the electricity being turned on, but once I turn this on, this is gonna start shooting out. Let's clear out some of these wires and let's get going. Just rock it back and forth. As you see, we're building up a nice carpet of static grass. Don't worry about any extra. We're gonna let it dry for a little bit. And then we're going to pull it all off. There's so much static grass everywhere, it's great. So as you can see, it's got nice and textured. I'm gonna dump some off. There you go. We will be sealing it in the next step. You can also see, there's some areas that I see that we can add some more, so I'm just gonna go in, grab the glue, layer some more in, and then I can just fix this up while it's still going. Gonna go round 2 with this. Turn it off. This is another reason I like using the thick rim base or thick ring pan. After this dries, what I can do is just take this, pour it back in the cup, and load up the hopper again, and I don't make a mess, and I get to reuse any overspill I have. The next thing we're going to do is work on the actual models that live in the regiment stands that we got. The process is very similar, so we got some painted models. As always, before you do basing, I suggest that you get your models varnished so that if you have any mistakes, it's easier to clean up. These models already had the texture paste applied, and then just on top, just like we did with the stands, is we just put on a nice thick layer of the glue. The final step we have is to seal the static grass down. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to be using the seal and spray from Geek Gaming Scenics. Woodland Scenic also has a product like this. Pretty easy. You want the ones that have a spray bottle. Just pick it up. I put these blank bases here because I don't want to hurt the metal plates for the magnets. So this just protects those so I don't have to clean it up. And then you just spray it on. Same thing with the models. Yet once again, they are varnished. And just use a brush to get that in there. Clean up the base frame. So I'm going to be using some model spray glue from JTT. The Geek Scenic, apparently I didn't clean all enough when I was testing it and it kind of clogged. So this is going to spray a little bit better. So just go through, spray it. I should be wearing gloves, but you know what? That's fine. I'm going to do it to the models too. Once again, these guys are painted in varnish, so this just hit the bottom part. This will help really seal stuff in. So there you go. That is how you make some nice, lush grassland bases. As you see, I've done a few different models from this range, and I've added a few additional details to help spice it up. I added some flowers, figured they would make sense in a field, and some rocks and things. Still, I want the main focus to be the grass, but this is a nice way to spice things up. And as you see, when they're all ranked together, they look fantastic. Is there some things that would do different or lessons learned? Yes. One, it's very messy. Make sure you have a little vacuum or something to help clean up. It's a big help. I know I use it between shots a few times. It is electric, so if you're not careful, you can zap yourself. I know using this did help with conductivity to stand the grass up, but I did notice that if I touched my wrist against the sides, I did get zaps from time to time. Maybe some electric tape around the edge would be helpful. The other thing that I didn't notice when I first started is this bottle actually says between uses, clean it out with warm water after use. I did not find that helpful. It did clog on me, and what I actually did is took the nozzle off, put it in a cup with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and squirt until I could cycle it through, and that cleaned it up very quickly. So be mindful of whatever spray you use, that it could clog and you have to just keep it clean. Other than that, I think it was a very successful basing, and I hope that you enjoyed what you watched. If you want to check out more of what we do here, like, follow, subscribe, and check us out as we create more of these type of tutorials. See you later.